Welcome back to another episode of Fluent with Teacher Pablo Podcast, where we combine fascinating real-world topics with English learning. Today's subject is rich with history, symbolism, and tradition. We're going to explore what happens when a pope dies, the historical implications, and how the Catholic Church chooses a new pope through the conclave. Plus, we'll highlight useful vocabulary, linking words and phrasal verbs you can incorporate into your English conversations.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda, and I'm thrilled to join Mark for this episode. This is such a fascinating topic because it's not just religious. It's deeply historical, cultural, and even political at times.
Exactly, Amanda. Let's start with the immediate aftermath when a pope passes away. First of all, it's important to note that the death must be officially verified. The Camerlengo, who is a senior cardinal, is responsible for confirming the pope's death. Traditionally, he would call the pope's baptismal name 3 times. If there's no response, he would then declare the pope officially deceased.
Although it sounds symbolic, it's also a very legal procedure. Immediately after, the Camerlengo takes charge of the Vatican, albeit temporarily. He organizes the funeral and prepares for the conclave, among many other tasks.
Yes, and during this time, no major decisions are made. The Catholic Church enters a period called sede vacante, meaning the seat is vacant. Although many people assume the church stops functioning, essential operations continue, but without major reforms or long-term decisions.
Furthermore, the Pope's funeral typically occurs between 4 and 6 days after his death. It's a deeply ritualistic event, attended by heads of state, religious leaders, and thousands of faithful Catholics from around the world.
Right. Now, once the mourning period concludes, preparations for the conclave begin. Here's where it gets very interesting. The word conclave comes from Latin, meaning with a key, because cardinals are literally locked inside the Sistine Chapel until they elect a new pope.
In fact, the cardinals, those eligible must be under the age of 80, meet daily to vote. They require a 2/3 majority to elect a new pope. Until a decision is reached, ballots are burned after each voting session.
Here's a useful phrase: white smoke versus black smoke. If the voting results in no election, black smoke is released. However, when a pope has been chosen, white smoke billows from the Sistine Chapel's chimney, signaling to the world that a new spiritual leader has been elected.
Another important aspect to understand is the historical implications. Some papal deaths, such as that of Pope John Paul II, who died only 33 days after his election, have sparked controversy and even conspiracy theories. On the other hand, longer papacies, like that of John Paul II, have shaped modern Catholicism significantly.
Moreover, the selection of a new pope can influence not just religious matters, but also global diplomacy, economics, and cultural trends. Therefore, the conclave is not just a religious ritual, it's a global event.
It's also worth mentioning that over the centuries, the process has evolved. For example, in earlier periods, political leaders often tried to influence the election, whereas today, the cardinals are isolated from outside communication precisely to avoid political interference.
Yes, that's quite interesting, Amanda.
Si te está gustando el contenido de este podcast, te agradecería mucho que me dejes un comentario con cuál sería el siguiente tema que te gustaría ver dentro de estas conversaciones, que te suscribas, me dejes tu like y lo compartas con quien creas que le pueda servir para poder traerte más contenido como este.
Now, I think it would be great to discuss a bit about the emotional aspect that follows a pope's death. It's not just administrative or political, it deeply affects millions of Catholics emotionally, don't you think?
Absolutely. The Pope is not just a leader. For many, he is a spiritual father figure. His death can bring a real sense of mourning, almost like losing a close family member. People gather in prayer, hold vigils, and share memories of his legacy.
Moreover, depending on the pope's popularity, the mourning period can extend across the world, transcending religious lines. We've seen cases where leaders of other faiths and even non-religious groups pay tribute. Therefore, the passing of a pope becomes a global moment of reflection.
That's a great point. And during this period, there's also a lot of speculation and debate about what direction the next pope might take. Will he be more traditional, or will he be a reformer? Will he come from Europe, or perhaps from another continent?
Exactly. These discussions show how much the role of the pope still matters on a global scale. Although many institutions have lost influence over time, the papacy retains significant moral and diplomatic authority.
And speaking of change, it's interesting to note that popes are also choosing names that signal their priorities. For example, Pope Francis chose his name to honor Saint Francis of Assisi, signaling a papacy focused on humility, poverty, and care for creation.
That's right. The name a pope selects is highly symbolic. It often gives the world a preview of the values he intends to emphasize during his leadership.
On another note, what about the ceremonies following the election of a new pope? They are full of powerful rituals and ancient traditions, aren't they?
Yes, absolutely. After a pope is elected, he accepts the position with the phrase accepto, meaning I accept in Latin. Then he is immediately vested with the papal robes and is presented to the world from the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica with the famous announcement, Habemus Papam, meaning we have a pope.
Furthermore, the new pope celebrates a grand inaugural mass attended by cardinals, heads of state, and pilgrims from around the world. This mass emphasizes his commitment to service, humility, and continuity of the faith.
And interestingly, the papal ring, known as the Ring of the Fisherman, is a key symbol. Each pope has a new ring cast, and upon a pope's death, his ring is ceremonially destroyed to symbolize the end of his authority.
What a fascinating detail. It's incredible how every gesture and object carries deep meaning. From the smoke signals during the election to the destruction of the ring after death, symbolism is everywhere.
Now, let's highlight a few important linking words and phrases we've used today that you should definitely practice. Although, moreover, therefore, furthermore, and on the other hand. Also, notice the phrasal verbs like take charge, carry out, and step down, which are commonly used when talking about authority and leadership changes. Moreover y therefore son conectores muy útiles. Moreover significa además y se utiliza para agregar información. Therefore significa por lo tanto y se utiliza para expresar una consecuencia o resultado lógico. Although significa aunque y se utiliza para expresar una condición. On the other hand significa por otra parte, se puede utilizar como sinónimo de moreover.
Absolutely, and to add words like immediate aftermath, symbolic gesture, global diplomacy, and ritualistic event are fantastic collocations that can elevate your English fluency.
Before we wrap up, here's a quick reflection. The death of a pope is not just an end, it's also a beginning. A moment of mourning followed by renewal. Similarly, in language learning, every mistake we make is not an end but an opportunity for growth.